Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive yet informal, as always, study of Kant's critique of pure reason. I'm here with Kirk and Pat today. Pat's returned. Um, if you've been
Yes.
following along,
Hi.
yeah, Pat's here. You've known we've missed him in this study and some of his insights and analyses and often like succinct summarization. So let me get the soundboard open. That's another thinking of Pat, this is something that he was pretty monumental in installing in the study series. So these sound buttons, and then I've been
Yes.
using them in your absence a bit, Pat. So, uh,
Thanks for all the appreciation.
of
I
course,
was just occupied with some life responsibilities.
yes,
But this is actually a section I remember pretty distinctly from the critique, my first initial reading of the Critique of Pure Reason. And I remember understanding it and also understanding exactly what's wrong with it, which is that he misconstrues what Berkeley is saying.
yeah, which I think we're gonna get into because, um, which this transitions nicely into my usual summarizations of what's come before, which have been getting like pretty long, even longer, Pat, since in time we've been gone, just because we've been covering more and arguments are long, and I feel like we've been on the systematic representations of all synthetic principles for like this was even like before your little hiatus. We were still on this, so we've still been at it. But what we should we're in the second to last section of it. After this, there's just like another like general remark or elucidation or whatever, and then we're on to phenomena, noumena, distinction. So, but anyway, so that's looking ahead. But looking back, just for some context and to orient ourselves, in this today's study, we were looking at his argument against Descartes that we can know the outer from the inner, right? Descartes, I think, therefore I am. The indubitable truth is the I think, what Kant calls like inner sense, empirically determined. And his big proof and notes here that start right before where we're going to be reading today, which is after these three dots and where the A edition picks up again. This is all B edition stuff, the stuff against Descartes and what he calls problematic idealism. But the two main tenets, if I guess if I were to summarize them, are one that the external is actually necessary for the inner. Which, if you're curious about how that works, go back and look at that. The last two installments have been about that, and then also last time we got to the what I would probably, if I had to summarize into two. The second tenet of his argument is that there are two. Descartes is conflating the I think and I am. The I am for Descartes is what Kant would call the empirical consciousness, or inner sense, and and then the I think is the I think of original opperception, which is transcendental. Also, an empty concept of sorts, and we talk a little bit about that. And Zizek loves that, and I find that fascinating personally. But and I'm excited to research more of that. I think I'm going to be doing that a little bit in this semester in some of my papers and classes and other things. But anyway, so those are the main two tenets of the argument as I understand them. And now we're here in
But
these three dots. Yeah, what's up, Pat? You have
yes,
some preliminary remarks.
actually just double back.
What's that?
Yeah, can we actually just double back a little bit? Just as somebody who has read the like Berkeley's main treatise, uh, uh, the on the dogmatic.
Oh. This.
Yes, right,
Yes. Here
good.
you go.
Yes, where he says the latter is the dogmatic idealism of Berkeley, who declares space, together with all the things to be attached to it as an inseparable condition, to be something impossible in itself, and who therefore declares things in space to be merely imaginary. This construal of Berkeley is merely imaginary.
Yes.
Berkeley and no he doesn't imagine he doesn't say that space doesn't exist. He says that whatever exists is what is perceived.
Yes.
Space obviously is perceived. Kant says this. I mean, there's not even a conflict between what between
Well,
like
since
Berkeley's conception
space
of
is
space
intuited in Kant, I would
and
say that's
Kant.
that's a difference. That's a big difference, actually.
What's the difference between intuited and perceived here in this
One
case?
one's pure and one's empirical. Unless but again, maybe Berkeley does like. Dude, I haven't read the whole treatise like you
Kant,
have.
so Berkeley doesn't make the pure versus empirical
Well,
distinction.
that's
He's not
exactly what's
aware of any. thinking
Right.
it.
Well,
But there's
that's
nothing. There's no assertion that he makes that is contrary to Kant. There's no
okay.
incompatibility. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't. He doesn't make the distinction between a pure and an empirical intuition.
Well, that's pretty big in
That's
Kant.
fair. Fine.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, that's true. He doesn't like point out that space is a priori or anything like that, but that's not relevant. What's relevant, what
Okay.
Berkeley's actual claim is that if you attend to space, yeah, of course there's space, and it exists as a perception of your mind. And those who imagine a separate secondary space outside of the mind are postulating a complete redundancy, which is also what Kant says.
Yes.
Like
That
Kant says that
he
space
says that
is
literally later on. Yeah, he does. Like literally later in the section. So okay.
like, no, he's fighting an imaginary ghost. It doesn't exist.
Fair. However, if you I mean, not defend Kant here in like directly against Pat, because I would agree from what he's said, but I just want to emphasize the important, even if it's not Barclay he's arguing against, Kant does want to argue against that.
What he calls idealism.
Yes, declaring space
What
together with all thing and inseparable to be something that's possible in itself. Kant wants to argue against this, even if it's not Barclay who argues it. So, and I think we've been handling Descartes, so I don't think we've really gotten to that specifically. So, hoping we'll find some of this today in our
I'm
reading.
not aware of a single idealist who has claimed that this is false. Who I don't
Right.
know who he's
It's
fighting
just what
against.
Kant's
Unless
calling
maybe it's
idealism
Parmenides.
and what Kant is calling Barclay. Descartes was represented pretty accurately, is
Descartes was represented accurately, but Berkeley was not.
to my knowledge. So okay,
But that's
cool.
probably because of his continental tradition, right? So he's familiar to an extent with Locke, and he's familiar with Hume, but I guess he just did like a very cursory overview of Berkeley or something like that.
It's possible.
He does not he does not show himself to be familiar with the works of Berkeley through this reading.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well,
You
thank
said
you,
the
Pat.
continental
All right.
tradition?
Well, no, not
Yeah,
Kirk, not
the
not
original continental.
Yes, I was gonna. Yeah, it's not what you're thinking, Kirk, and that's a difference that I think is not relevant to. This introduction's been going on for 7 minutes,
We'll
which
go
is
over that later.
yeah. Let's Kirk, if you have any other like that are directly like from the readings, any questions or comments, feel free, and if not, someone can start reading.
I'd like to get started if it's all right.
Yeah, Kirk doesn't seem to have any
All right.
questions, so yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Finally, as far as the third postulate is concerned, it pertains to material necessity in existence, not merely the formal and logical necessity of the connection of concepts. Now, that's why it's dynamical rather than mathematical.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
So, now since no existence of objects of the senses can be cognized fully a priori, but always only comparatively a priori, relative to another already given existence, but since nevertheless, when we can only arrive at an existence that must be contained somewhere within the nexus of experience, of which the given perception is a part, the necessity of experience can thus never be cognized from concepts, but rather always only from the connection with that which is perceived, in accordance with the general laws of experience. Now, there is no existence that could be cognized as necessary under the condition of other given other given appearances, except the existence of effects from given causes in accordance with laws of causality. Thus, it is not the existence of things, substances, but of their state which alone can cognize the necessity. Thus, I underlined that in my original for some reason. Thus, it is not the existence of things, substances, but of their state, which alone, we can cognize the necessity. I see. That's why it's going to be relevant later when he talks about the ontological argument.
I see.
Yes. Okay. And moreover, only from other states, which are given in perception in accordance with empirical laws of causality.
Empirical, that's the important, right? Sorry, continue.
Right. From this, it follows that the criterion of necessity lies solely in the law of possible experience, that everything that happens is determined a priori through its cause in appearance. Hence, we cognize only the necessity of effects in nature, the causes of which are given to us. Okay. And the mark of necessity in existence does not reach beyond the field of possible experience, and even in this it does not hold of the existence of things as substances, since they can never be regarded as empirical effects or something that happens and arises. Necessity, therefore, concerns only the relation of appearances in accordance with the dynamical law of causality, and the possibility grounded upon it of inferring a priori from some given cause, from some given existence, a cause, to another existence, the effect. Everything that happens is hypothetically
Mm-hmm.
necessary. That is a principle that uh, subjects
Alteration
uh, alteration.
in the world to a
Yeah,
law.
that was weird.
Mhm.
Like my eyes were skipping back to
Oh,
the wrong part of the
I see.
page. Yes. Everything that happens is hypothetically necessary. That is a principle that suggests alteration in the world to a law, i.e., the rule of necessary existence, without which not even nature itself would obtain. Hence the proposition, nothing happens through a mere accident.
Latin.
Latin is an a priori law. This paragraph is not a paragraph.
No, I was previewing this last time. You were yesterday when you were in here, but I was like, good God, this might take us like more than one session. Although no, I'm not sure because a lot of this is review. But anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, the sentence is okay. Nothing happens through a mere accident is an a priori law of nature. Likewise, the proposition, no necessity in nature is blind, but is rather conditioned, consequently comprehensible necessity. Huh? No necessity in nature is blind, but rather conditioned, consequently comprehensible necessity. Okay. Both are laws of the sort through which the play of alterations is subjected to a nature of things as appearances, or that which is the same thing to the unity of the understanding, in which alone they can belong to an experience, as the synthetic unity of appearances. Both of these belong to the dynamical
Yes.
principles. The first is properly a consequence of the principle of causality under analogies of experience. The second belongs to the principles of modality, which adds to the causal determination the concept of necessity, which, however, stands under a rule of the understanding. The principle of continuity forbade any leaps in the series of appearances, alterations, but also any gap or cleft between two appearances in the sum of all empirical intuitions in space. For one can express the proposition thus: nothing can enter experience that proves a vacuum, or even permits it as part of empirical
Hey,
synthesis.
that's a hell of a sentence for you to return on because I remember that was something we were going into a lot. So anyway, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, that's yes. Yes. Yep. Okay.
Hmm.
As far as concerns the void that one might think of outside of the field of possible experience, this does not belong to the jurisdiction of the mere understanding, which only decides about questions regarding the use of given experiences
For
for
empirical cognition.
appearances for uh, empirical cognition.
Boom.
And it is a problem for ideal reason, which goes beyond the sphere of a possible experience and would judge about what surrounds the bounds this, and must therefore be considered in the
Oh,
transcendental dialectic.
we got like a Marvel core like foreshadowing. Like
Well,
they're just name
we're
dropping the sequel.
pretty, we are very close to the transcendental
Yes, we are. That
dialectic at
after
the
shortly after this
we're,
is the
we're,
phenomena noumena distinction, baby. We're getting there. And he's
yeah.
and he's. I mean, I don't want to start the summary like too quickly, but I mean, just look at what he's saying. He's talking about transcending, like right, what happens when we transcend this realm of experience. When we apply certain rules that are used for the given appearances of empirical cognition to things. I mean, his one example is the void here in like vacuum, right? But we're soon going to be doing a lot more God, soul, all that stuff. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted I thought that was really, I don't know,
Yes.
interesting, and we get this just like I don't know why I find this so funny. This must just be like brain rot, but
Oh.
it's the fucking like the Marvel like I don't know quip, or it would be where it's just like they like say like Like I don't or like I don't know like God, I'm ruining the joke and the pace
I'm
of the
really not sure
study.
what you're getting at right
I'm
now.
trying to describe it. It's like when they say the name. It's like in the thing itself.
Roll
Like it.
credits.
What's that?
Roll credits.
It's like when at the end of the movie and they're like,
Yeah, roll
"Wow,
credits.
like we've
You
reached."
really were. You really were the transcendental dialectic.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you.
That's,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, okay.
yes. Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry, I
All
didn't know
right.
what that was
All
called.
right.
Okay, I really fucked that up.
All
That's
right.
embarrassing. I deserve a
Bruh.
bruh for that. Okay.
No, that's more than a bro. That's a straight up womp womp.
That was horrible.
All right.
Really stressing the
Well,
informal part of the study.
anyway, to wrap
Continue,
this up,
please. Yeah.
uh, we could easily represent the order of these four propositions in accordance with the order of the categories, just like all principles of transcendental origin, and show its position. But the already practiced reader will do this for himself or easily discover the clue to it. However, they are all united simply in this, that they do not permit anything in empirical synthesis that would violate or infringe the understanding and the continuous connection of all appearances, i.e., the unity of its concepts. For it is in this alone that the unity of experience, in which all perceptions must have their place, is possible.
Oh boy. Big paragraph. There's substance in terms of like important doctrines, but I feel like these all have been things at one point or another, ranging from like all the way back to analogies of experience to even just like the previous section. Like all this, I think, has been covered, which is probably why it's like its own little thing. Um, I don't know. Any comments or
Yeah. Um, uh, 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 One of the reasons why, after reading Kant, Schopenhauer's mind was open to the Upanishads is that this conception of causality is identical with the karmic one.
oh, is it interesting?
Yes,
Cool.
in my view, anyway, and I am not the only one who thinks so.
Cool. Interesting connection. Thank you for that. Yeah, I don't know all stuff that's been said before. Really, if I had to like, I've tried to been like, especially when they're longer, I've trying to summarize these, but I mean, I just feel like I've said a lot of this stuff before. But yeah, so I guess I guess I could try to like two main things pop out at me in this long paragraph. First and foremost, in this first part, he's really reemphasizing the fact that uh, things like causality and substance are possible only in empirical settings in which the understanding is applying its categories uh, to intuitions in such a way that it's basically the stuff from the deduction, and then from there, like the understanding specifically is applying things like the analogy of experience and the um, postulates of empirical what perception, I forget what that section's called, but applying those principles essentially such that experience can be formed through that synthesis. However, these things found in the understanding, which again, one of the big insights from the deduction is that it all possible through the I think, right? So is where these principles come from. So in that synthesis of the I think with the material that is being unified, the manifold, right? Um, which is broad, and Kant thinks there too, to my understanding, which is something we got into a while ago when Pat was here, and that's kind of been cleared up for me. But anyway, without getting too caught in those details, when it's unifying the manifold through these principles, it can only do so in these principles for cognition to happen. Which brings me to where he was talking about at the end with the vacuum stuff and some of the stuff I said before about what we're gonna get to in the transcendental dialectic, which as Pat pointed out, we're not too far away from. And one more thing I wanted to point out: Kant really emphasizes that these are principles for possible experience. Something a misunderstanding I had. Like looking back, I was arguing with Pat pretty staunchly about this, just not really on here as much, but like more so just in person and at the philosophy society at our undergrad institution. But I thought we could actually like deduce specific causes in reality and sort of like a priori try to prove them. Maybe even up to the point of like nature wizard stuff. Like you guys probably saw at the beginning of the study. Um, all the way back when we were reading the introduction. But no, Kant is really emphasizing that these are, I think earlier in the critique, he calls them regulative principles, and they're merely just things that make things possible. He's not arguing that we can go so far as to just point to a specific experience and be like, ah, yes, here's the cause, here's the effect. Merely cause and effect is something necessary to even cognize experience at all, which I guess Kant takes to be enough of a refutation of Hume, because Hume says, how can we even know this at all? Kant says, you're going about this all wrong. You're deducing this principle from the wrong source. So that's my summation of this long paragraph. I mean, I'm sure I left out some details and emphasized others, but I just think that I emphasized the ones that are pop out to me and I think are important for continuing. Any other questions or comments or summarizations or anything you guys find interesting at all?
Yeah, my comment is that I still don't quite understand. Like he says that in order for there to be, in order for our experience to be unified, it has to follow a unified order, and therefore has to
But
be
can you
thinkable.
where is I just want to find where you're
No,
at.
I'm summarizing
Oh,
it.
oh,
I'm
oh,
sum.
oh, sorry. I thought you were pointing out
Yeah,
somewhere. Okay, sorry. Repeat
yeah.
that
I'm not
if you
pointing
want.
out a specific minutia. I'm looking at the big picture here,
Okay,
right?
yes.
Why does
Go ahead.
Kant say that causation is necessary? He says it's necessary for appearances
Yes.
in order for us to have consciousness, which is one consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order for our perception to hold and for us
Yes.
to have like a single appearance, well, then that means that, for instance, cause and effect need to hold
Mm-hmm.
because there needs to be a unity of cause and
Yes.
effect.
The answer I believe you're
But that
looking for is found
doesn't.
in a section that I don't think we're here for, at least all the way. It's found in the analogies of experience, I think,
I
and
haven't
it's.
asked the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but my question is, in what sense do they need to be unified, right? Our perception is merely the unity that this is my perception, and also this is my perception. Why does it follow that these two perceptions need to themselves also be combined with a cognizable rule?
Because this is the whole thing about the form of inner sense being time and like a continuity. Um, and it has to do with actually the imagination as well. The imagination is not merely productive in the sense that it's producing, like you're saying correctly. Yes, this is my perception, and then also this is my perception, but it's also reproductive in the sense that, like in memory, it reproduces other perceptions that in such a way that you can recall it in your current perception, and in doing that, it forms a stream and an ordering of experiences in such a way that one thing
So,
came before and one thing became after. And through
so in
this,
other
Kant
words, it's
tries to.
necessary to know. Wait, can I?
Yep.
So, in other words, you're saying it's basically necessary to know which way is forward and which way is back in time?
As far as I understand, I think that's what he's saying. To my understanding,
I guess that makes sense,
yeah,
right?
that's my understanding
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We love the modi of time. Shout out modi of time and time determination.
Yeah, right. So, yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Okay, so the idea is essentially that, like, okay, if I start a fire and then a fire happens, that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. But
Yes.
if I have the fire and then this fire is started, that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
And
At
the
least we wouldn't
reason is
cognize it that way. Yeah.
right. Well, one needs to be a cause and the other needs to be an effect
Yeah.
for me to know that this one comes after the other
Mm-hmm.
one when I'm imagining them.
Yes.
Sure, if I didn't have any kind of imagination, it could just be like chain, whatever. But like, yeah, in order for me to make basically an up or down, a heads or tails of which
Mm-hmm.
way time's going,
Precisely.
and to have a memory of, oh, this happened and then this happened and
Yes.
then this happened.
Reproductive imagination. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
What Kant calls reproductive
okay, I
imagination.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah, Pat. Since you've gone too, I'm in a Kant and Husserl seminar, so
Yeah, that's very
my
helpful.
understanding of this has like increased fucking tenfold since you were last year.
I
Like
mean,
I feel so
clearly,
powerful.
yeah, clearly, because I was like baffled by this problem for like 4 years, and
Yeah,
now you've just cleared it up.
God,
Well, that's
grad
very
school
helpful.
kids. This is why you go to grad school.
It's like,
Let's get a
okay.
yippee for grad school. Professor
Yeah,
James
this is a
Dodd.
big. This is
Shout out.
this earns a little more than a yippee. I think this earns like, oh, James Dodd. This earns like a smoke weed every day, I
Oh
think.
my God, yeah. Hold on. Let's get shout out James Dodd. Wait, ready?
Smoke weed every day.
Hell yeah. I hope I'm
I
allowed
think
to do
James
this.
Dodd is your little pog champ, as a matter of fact. I think James Dodd is your little pog champ,
God, if
right?
he ever watches this, I don't want to confirm or deny that.
It's on the board.
My moral consciousness has advised me
It's
to
on
not
the
comment.
board, dude. Concentration. No, okay. All right.
And he's not even a
Fine, I
Kant
guess
guy, which
not.
blows my mind. I mean, we're gonna read Husserl clearly,
Well,
but
I mean, if he's a Husserl guy, he has to be a Kant
exactly,
guy.
yes. Which I'm gonna. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but I just figured that's something that has happened since you've been gone, so I understand like what's going. Like remember right before you left, Pat, I was like, I'm like really starting to lose the bigger picture. I like don't really understand like what's going on here, like why we're getting so into this, and like how is this connected to the connection of like how is synthetic a priori possible. Oh yeah, I am totally
Well, good
reoriented and
news for
locked
you.
in.
Once we
Yeah.
get into the transcendental dialectic, like things get so much easier. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty confident moving forward, and I've been confident. Like you left at a really good time for us to continue Kant study, and for me to like become the main.
I reckon we're about over the hill.
Yeah, that's exactly something I was thinking too. So okay, um, any other questions, comments, vaguely related to this, or James Dodd or Snoop Dogg before we before we continue? I'm gonna take that as a no. Who would like to read
I'm
next?
sorry, I couldn't. I was on a call.
Oh, no problem.
If you're asking, I can read. I can read.
Okay,
Sorry, I was just on a call, so I couldn't hear you.
no problem at all. We're picking up here if you want to read.
Hey, was it a field of possibilities greater than a field that contains everything actual? And was it the latter is in turn greater than the set of that which is necessary? Are proper questions and can, to be sure, be solved synthetically, though they also fall under the jurisdiction of reason alone, for they mean roughly task, was are all things as appearances belong together in a sum total in the concept of a single experience, of which each given perception is a part which therefore cannot be combined with any other appearances whether any perceptions could belong to more than one possible experience in their general connection. The understanding gives a priori to experience in general only the rule in accordance with the subjective and formal conditions of sensibility as well as our perception, which alone make it possible. Even were they possible, we could still not conceive of and make comprehensible other forms of intuition in space and time or other forms of understanding than the discursive form of thinking without cognition through concepts. And even if we could, they would still not belong to experience as the sole cognition which objects are given to us. But there are other perceptions and those which in general belong to our entire possible experience and therefore an entirely different field of matter cannot be decided by the understanding, which has to do only with the synthesis of that which is given. Otherwise, the poverty of the usual inferences through which we bring forth the great realm of possibility of which everything actual, every object of experience is only a small part, is very obvious. Everything actual is possible. From this, therefore, there follows naturally, in accordance with this logical rules of conversion, the merely particular proposition, something possible is actual, which then seems to mean as much is possible that is not actual, and certainly looks as if one could increase the number of that which is possible beyond that of the actual, since something must be added to the former to constitute the latter. But I do not acknowledge this addition to the possible, for that which would have to be added to the possible would be impossible. All that which
Hmm.
can be added to my understanding is something beyond agreement with the formal conditions of experience, namely connection with some perception or other. But whatever is connected with this is in accordance with empirical laws is actual, even if it is not immediately perceived. However, that
Uh,
another series of appearances in thoroughgoing connection with that which is given to me in perception, thus more a single all-encompassing experience is possible cannot be inferred from that which is given, and even less without anything being given at all. For without matter, nothing at all can be thought. That which is possible only under conditions that are themselves merely possible is not possible in all respects. But this is the way the question is taken when one wants to know whether the possibility of things exists for an experience can read.
Thank you. This is an interesting paragraph. Beginning, I thought it was just gonna be more like regurgitation of previously posited
No, this is
doctrine,
about the
but
ontological argument. He's going to take this back up in the transcendental
yes,
dialect.
but also, sure, thank you. Yes, I think that is. I mean, I haven't gotten there, but seems legit. But something I did want to say from something I have read before, that Pat wasn't here for, but I was wondering about why his definitions of existence, that what right? So the three, what are they? The postulates of empirical thinking in general, I think he calls them, right? Possibility, necessity, or possibility, actuality, and necessity is the order in which he presents them, and they have to do with all those things like in time, and even more specifically as they relate to empirical experience. And I was like, why are these such limited definitions of these words that are traditionally used, even at this point in the history of thought, like so metaphysically? And he explains that here. This is his answer, really. That if I had to like summarize it in a my immediate like way of doing that is to say that we can have too much fun and like get irresponsible when talking about the possible, right? Even to the point where we might start saying that what is possible is something that is actually impossible. So he really wants to ground these definitions in experience, and based on the context of like the last section as well as just even more of this section, um, is because his overall project of grounding the understanding as designed for unification of the manifold such that we form empirical experience. Um, like
Yeah, I think the question is like possible how, right?
Exactly, yes.
Possible in what sense?
And
Logically possible, just non-contradictory? Sure.
exactly,
But
yeah.
is it the case that everything that is non-contradictory could actually in fact be possible? No, in fact, the only things that are possible are those which are actual.
Yes.
If you really think about
Hegel,
it.
yeah, I was thinking that too. I was gonna be hesitant to bring that up because I know like earlier we tended to, I was uploading the other studies and I noticed we tend to get like way off track a little bit, talking a lot about Hegel. No, that's not interesting, but I thought it would be nice to try to like centralize it a little bit more, especially in the interest of time. But yeah, that's like all explicitly fucking Hegelian. Hegel must have, I cannot
And
see
I don't know
the
if you were
influence there.
trying to avoid spoilers or anything, but I don't believe in spoilers for this. So I'm just
Sure.
going to tell you where he's going with this, which
Mhm.
is basically this. The ontological argument is based on the premise that God is logically possible. He
Yes.
admits it.
Yes.
But we don't know anything about the actual possibility
Existence.
of God.
Yes.
Right, because that would require transcendent, like knowledge of the transcendental, like what are the actual conditions for possibility in actual mind transcending reality,
Yes. In
right?
like the
Rather
manifold
than
and
like
beyond.
what can
Yeah.
we merely think of without contradiction? And the answer is yeah, we can think of a like God without contradiction, but that does not prove that God is possible in actuality.
And that argument,
So
has like such personal significance to me. It's one of the reasons why in Shattering of Reason my mind was blown, and Kant helped save my life. And there's a video about that on my other channel, Absolute Spirit, just to shout that out. But yeah, any powerful argument I think is sort of my main thing that I mean to, and I think is so yeah, I love that argument, and it's so fascinating to me in the history of thought and just personally. So. No, just some 2 cents there. But
yeah,
sorry,
it's a
Pat. Did you have more
very
to say?
big deal. It's a very big
Yeah,
deal because pretty much
yeah.
after Kant,
You can't be
I mean, it
Spinozist
takes
after
some
that.
time. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Because Spinoza does kind of rely on you
Yes,
cannot be a strict Spinozist.
I'm
I
presenting a
think there's sort
paper
of a
about this.
reconstruction that could. Yeah, well, you can in a sort of a weird reconstruction way. I would argue that Schopenhauer is not that far from Spinoza, anyways.
Yeah,
Um,
we've got to do a comprehensive yet informal study of the world as will and the fourfold root.
oh,
Not in that order, the
well, I
other
mean
way.
that's yeah, in the other order,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yes, absolutely. The man who solved philosophy. That's the. We'll get to that later.
No,
but anyway, yes.
I agreed for a while, and like back when I thought philosophy is something that was supposed to be solved, like in this and like Kant even here is something that I thought would push me in that direction. And I still have much admiration for show. I remember not as much. I just remember really finding it powerful, and Hegel. I got into Hegel. Which he would not have approved of, but anyway, we're getting into what I wanted to avoid with the study.
Yes.
But
keep
and
going.
it's almost 8, so let's try to. Oof, can we get through? So we're here, right? No. Yes. Yeah.
No.
No. Where?
We'll go
No.
down.
No. No. Yeah. We're okay.
That.
We're here.
And we're
No.
at
No. No.
that.
We read this. We read
Yeah.
this. We're here.
In all respects, we're here. So
Okay.
I've only mentioned these questions.
Okay.
To where's that end?
Well, this little paragraph ends here, but this section.
Okay.
Hey, we can finish. We can finish. Okay. Cool. Awesome. We can finish the refutation. This is a 3-parter, folks. Okay. So we're here, right? We're here, I think, right?
I have mentioned these questions. Yes, I've
Okay.
only mentioned these
Okay.
questions.
I think I'm up in the rotation, dream reading rotation. I've only mentioned these questions in order not to leave a gap in what, according to common opinion, belongs among the concepts of the understanding, right? This is common arguments for God, for example, right? And I mean, like Pat said, we'll get to that. Anyway, moving on. In fact, however, absolute possibility, which is valid in every respect, is no mere concept of the understanding, and can in no way be of empirical use. Rather, it belongs solely to reason. Important distinction, which he's mentioned before, but really emphasizing here now, and will continue to if I remember the little bits of the future parts of this that I've read previously, which goes beyond all possible empirical use of the understanding. Hence, we have had to satisfy ourselves here with merely a critical remark, but otherwise left the matter in obscurity pending further treatment. God, Marvel Core. Oh my God. Okay. That was really not philosophically substantial much at all, so I will keep going if there are no objections. Since I would now conclude this 4th section, and with it at the same time the system of all principles of the pure understanding, I must still provide the reason why I have called the principles of modality postulates. That's actually a question I had, so I'm interested now. Even more so. I will not here take this expression in the significance that, contrary to the usage of mathematics, to whom it nevertheless properly belongs, some recent philosophical writers have used it, namely that postulation means the same as putting a proposition forth as immediately certain without justification or proof. If we were to allow that synthetic propositions, no matter how evident they might be, could claim unconditional acceptance of any deduction merely on their own claim, then all critique of the understanding would be lost. And since there is no lack of audacious pretensions that common belief does not refuse, which is, however, no credential, our understanding would therefore be open to every delusion, without being able to deny its approval to those claims that, though unjustifiable, demand to be admitted as actual axioms in the very same confident tone. When, therefore, a determination is added a priori to the concept of a thing, then for such a proposition is not a proof, then at least a deduction of the legitimacy of its assertion most unfailingly be supplied. This is just all like shitting on Spinoza, basically. I mean, among other like rationalists, but I think probably primarily Spinoza. I mean, what other philosopher writes in such the way that he's attacking? You know, I don't know.
There's also like, I mean, the other rationalists like Leibniz, and like also I heard, I don't know if you know him, a fellow named Christian Wolff. I heard was a prominent rationalist who was like advocating for like a similar thing what you're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, the Kant comes from the Leibnizian Wolff tradition. Leibniz and Wolff are two of some of Kant's biggest like teachers in some sense. So sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, but he goes on to criticize.
Of course, that's what he's doing here. Yeah, yep. Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Nevertheless, I don't think people today take Leibniz seriously.
They do. I found them. I found the Leibnizian.
Sad.
Well, it's interesting. I would not call them dogmatic. I found one at least, and I'm assuming there's probably a larger group of them, but I found one very interesting. I don't want to comment on like whether I'm inclined to say like I disagree because as Pat and I have commented many times. To our understanding and our reading, Leibniz totally got owned and had to cope. And if you're interested in that, see our other editions where we go on for that longer. But anyway, this person would. And I don't even understand the arguments, so I'm not going to try to recreate them here. But I just want to comment that they seem very keenly aware of Kant's.
I think this is one of our side tangents.
Yes, it is. But
Yeah.
anyway. Point being, I found a Leibnizian. I will go on later off camera because this is something that greatly interests me, and I want to learn more and maybe see if you guys understand some of their arguments. So anyway,
Yeah.
yes, side tangent. Thank you, Pat, for keeping it on track. Any other comments about this thing? I don't think there's much.
None for me.
Alrighty. Let's. I think Pat is next in the reading rotation. Pat, you want to finish us off here?
Yeah.
Cool.
The principles of modality are not, however, objective synthetic, since the predicates of possibility, actuality, and necessity do not in the least augment the concept of which they are asserted in such a way as to add something to the representation of the object.
This is a point.
But since they are nevertheless...
Sorry, I just want to say this is a point that he's made earlier that I can because you sound a little confused, Pat. I can elaborate on that if you'd like, but you can continue if
Oh
not.
no, I'm not confused.
Okay, cool. Just wondering.
I don't feel confused at all.
Okay, cool.
But since they are nevertheless always synthetic, they are so only subjectively. I.e., they add to the concept of the thing the real about which they do not otherwise say anything. The cognitive power, whence it arises and has its seat, so that if it is merely connected in the understanding with the formal conditions of experience, it is called possible. If it is in connection with the perception, sensation, as a matter of senses, and through this determination by means of the understanding, then the object is actual. And if it is determined through the connection of perceptions in accordance with concepts, then the object is called necessary. The principles of modality, therefore, do not assert of a concept anything other than the action of the cognitive faculty through which it is generated. Now, in mathematics, a postulate is the practical proposition that contains nothing except the synthesis through which we first give ourselves an object and generate its concept, e.g., to describe a circle with a given line from a given point on a plane. And a proposition of this sort cannot be proved, since the procedure that it demands is precisely that through which we first generate the concept of such a figure. Accordingly, we can postulate the principles of modality with the very same right, since they do not augment their concept of things in general, but rather only indicate the way in which it in general is combined with cognitive power. Linguistic analytic philosophers need to read this shit.
Yep. Yes.
Why do you specifically single them out?
Sorry?
Why do you specifically single
Why did
out?
I single? Because
Their
there's
method.
a lot of yes. So if you went to Drew, then you probably had a problem with the metaphysics class. And in the problems of metaphysics class, they talked about the problem of non-being, which is a huge thing that analytic philosophers were talking about.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to say that a unicorn does not exist? And this idea of possibility and actuality. Well, for one thing, it's supposed that all of them presupposed. Russell seems to presuppose, and what was his name? The guy who says that the nothings are reals.
Van Inwagen? I don't know. I dropped that.
Anyway.
I dropped that class
I
2
don't
weeks
know.
in, so he's the only person I remember. What's up, Kirk?
I
Yeah.
think Van Inwagen was like Craig and Plantin got one of those Christian apologists. I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't remember. All I will say is the idea that a unicorn is possible but not real. The idea that has any kind of metaphysical import is sort of dissolved by the fact that the distinction between possible and actual is purely one which exists in our mind.
Yes, subjective synthesis.
It's a purely subjective thing. It is not objective. And Kant's not the first person to say this. Spinoza said this. Spinoza is the first person to say this, to my knowledge, actually.
Yeah, it's in the beginning of the Ethics. It's one of the axioms.
It's not an axiom at
oh.
all. It's not an axiom. It's one of the
Proposition.
It's a proposition.
Yeah,
It
okay.
comes actually relatively later in the Ethics, I think.
Okay. I'm
But
just thinking of something else then. Never mind.
I
So
don't
you think
remember
that
the
the,
order of the
that,
Ethics. I
like,
just remember what I learned from the Ethics.
Right.
I think that modal realism is assumed as a default, but modal idealism is pretty firmly established by several thinkers that I think people assume modal realism by default, and it's an issue.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I also don't think modal realism is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know much about like philosophy of language, but like I do know somebody who's like who's like bridges the analytic continental divide, a Brandom fellow who wrote a book called The Spirit of Trust. I don't know anything about it, but I heard that like he takes German ideas to construct like a systematic linguistic philosophy.
I generally, from what I've read from Brandom, I heavily disagree with his methodologies and his understanding. But that's getting way off topic. So I'm gonna visit. I want to understand where this footnote comes from, just for the sake of comprehensiveness. That's the first word in the series, so I want to do it justice here by exploring this. Where the fuck does this come from? I don't see it. Here. Okay. Accordingly, you can postulate the principles due to augments. Okay, through the actuality thing, I certainly posit more the possibility, but not in the thing for that. Right. The possibility was mere positing a thing in relation to the understanding of superiors, actualities. Yeah, okay. He's just reiterating a difference. He's reiterated like once back when we actually went through these principles in detail, which happened a few sessions ago. So look at that. There's probably a relevant title to some. I forget what it's called, and then he just went over that earlier, even in the same section. So, okay, perfect. Yeah, now, okay, I'm glad we finished that in one. I wasn't sure going to be able to do that, but luckily there was a lot of recap and just, I mean, a lot of it is helpful summary. I will still maintain that. But, so yeah, hopefully it's helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. We come to the end and I've got to get going to something and like now basically. So let me try to think of a quick Kantian wisdom of the day to leave you with. Quick Kantian wisdom of the day. And I want to try to make it exclusive to what we've done, which is difficult because there's been so much recap. That's like the challenge.
Don't get carried away with your idea of what's possible.
No, that's actually, yeah, that is pretty okay. Yeah. Good idea. Yeah. Okay. Good Kantian wisdom of the day.
The sky is not the limit.
The sky is not the limit.
Be realistic. Get a job.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is so like boomer core conservative. Oh my god.
Clean your room, bucko.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh my, that's so funny. Okay.
Today's Kantian wisdom is 12 rules for life.
Yeah, the pipeline.
The Peterson pipeline.
Yeah, my god.
It's not even a pipeline anymore. It's more like Ouroboros eating his own tail. Started with Peterson, then fall down the rabbit hole to Kant, then right back into Peterson.
That's a great place to end it on. We'll see you next time for general notes on the system of principles. Thank you. God bless. See you next time. Au revoir.